Why did his approval still matter so much? Why could I not just be content with the validation from actual clients who valued my work? 2 weeks later, Frank called me into his office, an unusual formality for our normally casual workplace. "I am getting older, Zeke," he said, using the nickname only he used. "Been thinking about the future of this place." He pushed a folder across his cluttered desk. "Before I tell you how my own family betrayed me and tried to steal everything I worked for, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had family members who did not believe in you." Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston shaped much of who I am today. My father worked as an accountant at a respected firm downtown, while my mother taught English literature at the local high school. Both valued financial security above almost everything else, a trait that would later cause significant conflict between us. Despite their cautious nature, they had always been supportive of my academic achievements and reasonable life choices. We maintained a close relationship throughout my childhood and early adulthood, though I could never escape the weight of their expectations. In our extended family, there was always one person who seemed to command special attention: my cousin Jake. The son of my mother's sister, Jake, had this natural charm that made adults gravitate toward him. At family gatherings, my accomplishments often felt overshadowed by his latest adventures or stories. It was never explicitly stated, but everyone in the family treated him like the golden child, including my parents, who never seemed to question his decisions or ambitions. After high school, I pursued a degree in computer science at a respectable state university. While not an Ivy League school, it offered a solid education that prepared me well for the tech industry. Upon graduation, I secured a position at Softtech Solutions, a mid-sized software company that developed business management systems. For 6 years, I dedicated myself to the company, often working nights and weekends to meet deadlines and exceed expectations. Despite my dedication, I found myself repeatedly passed over for promotions and exciting projects. My innovations were frequently attributed to team efforts, while my individual contributions remained unrecognized. This frustration became the catalyst for what would eventually become my own business venture. During those years of corporate dissatisfaction, I began developing my own software application during evenings and weekends. My creation was a sophisticated data management system for creative industries, something that could revolutionize how advertising agencies, design firms, and media companies organized and utilized their vast data collections. After 2 years of development, I had a working prototype that demonstrated significant advantages over existing solutions. My software utilized innovative algorithms to organize creative assets in a way that made them easily searchable and reusable, potentially saving companies thousands of hours of redundant work and millions of dollars annually. With my product nearly ready for market, I developed a comprehensive business plan. Market research indicated a significant gap in the industry for exactly the solution I had created. Early demonstrations to a few trusted contacts in the creative sector yielded enthusiastic responses, with several indicating strong interest in becoming paying customers once the product launched. The final hurdle was securing enough capital to quit my day job and fully commit to launching the business. I needed approximately $25,000 to cover living expenses and business costs for the first 6 months. While I had received some tentative interest from angel investors, I decided to approach my family first, believing they would be excited to support my entrepreneurial journey. One Sunday afternoon, I visited my parents at their suburban home, armed with my laptop business plan and prototype demo. I felt confident and excited as I set up my presentation in their living room, the same living room where they had always encouraged me to pursue my dreams and reach for the stars. As I began walking them through my vision, the atmosphere in the room felt unusually tense. My father constantly checked his watch while my mother kept glancing at her phone. Instead of the supportive questions and encouragement, I expected they responded with skepticism and doubt. What makes you think you can compete with established companies? My father asked dismissively. Do you realize how many tech startups fail within the first year? My mother added, Tobias, you have a stable job with benefits. Why risk everything on something so uncertain? Their questions focused not on the potential of my idea, but on all the possible ways it could fail. When I finished my presentation expecting at least some recognition of the work I had put in, my father simply closed my business plan document and handed it back to me. We do not think this is a sound investment, he stated flatly. We cannot give you the money for this venture. No explanation, no encouragement to seek alternatives. Just a cold, firm rejection that left me sitting there stunned my confidence, shattered by the people I thought would be my biggest supporters. The drive home from my parents' house that evening was one of the longest of my life. Rain pounded against the windshield, matching the storm of emotions raging inside me. I had always counted on my family's support, especially for something this important. Their rejection felt personal, as if they were saying they did not believe in me, not just my business idea. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into finding alternative funding sources. I approached a few small angel investors who had shown interest, but most wanted to see some family investment as a vote of confidence before they would commit. I dipped into my savings and even considered taking out a personal loan, despite the high interest rates that would strain my already tight budget. About a month after my parents' rejection, our extended family gathered at my aunt's house for her birthday celebration. I almost skipped the event, still nursing the wound from my parents' dismissal, but decided to make an appearance out of respect for my aunt. That's when I ran into Jake. Tobias, man, it has been too long, he greeted me, with his typical enthusiasm, clapping me on the shoulder like we were the best of friends rather than cousins who only saw each other at family functions. We made small talk about our jobs and lives until Jake leaned in conspiratorially. Actually, I am about to make a big change. I am launching my own business. My interest was genuinely piqued. What kind of business? Jake described his concept. A meal delivery service focusing on organic, locally sourced ingredients with pre-measured portions and recipe cards delivered directly to customers' homes. The market is ready for this, he explained. People want convenience without sacrificing quality or health. While his idea sounded viable, it also seemed derivative of several established meal delivery services already operating in the Boston area. Nevertheless, I congratulated him on taking the entrepreneurial leap and wished him luck. 2 weeks later, I received a call from my cousin Maria, who had always been close to both Jake and me. Did you hear about Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda investing in Jake's new business? She asked, referring to my parents. The news hit me like a physical blow. What? No, they did not mention anything about it. Maria sounded uncomfortable. Yeah. Apparently, they put in $75,000 as initial investment. Jake is telling everyone how grateful he is for their support. $75,000. 3 times the amount I had asked for. The revelation left me reeling. Why would they invest such a substantial amount in Jake's business after completely rejecting mine? I needed answers. I drove to my parents' house unannounced, something I rarely did. My mother answered the door, surprise evident on her face. Tobias, we were not expecting you. Is everything okay? I need to talk to you and Dad. I said, my voice tight with controlled emotion. It is about Jake's business. Their discomfort was immediately evident as we sat at the kitchen table. When confronted, they admitted to investing in Jake's meal delivery service, but defended their decision with weak justifications. His business plan is more stable, my father claimed. The food industry has proven profitability. And we have always enjoyed his cooking, my mother added, as if that were a legitimate business reason. So this is about favoritism, I stated bluntly. You have always preferred Jake over me, and now you are literally investing in him instead of your own son. That is not fair, Tobias, my father protested. We made a business decision based on risk assessment, but their explanations rang hollow. The truth was painfully clear. They simply believed in Jake more than they believed in me. The realization cut deeper than any knife could reach. As I left their house that day, something hardened inside me. The hurt transformed into determination. I would make my business succeed without them, and I would prove them wrong. In the following months, I poured every ounce of my energy and resources into launching my company, which I named DataCanvas. I liquidated my modest investment portfolio, maxed out a credit card with an introductory 0% interest rate, and borrowed $10,000 from my closest friend from college who had always believed in my technical abilities. I worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week. After giving my 2 weeks' notice at Softtech, I converted my apartment's second bedroom into an office and subsisted on instant noodles and coffee to minimize expenses. The stress took its toll on my health, with frequent migraines and weight loss that made my clothes hang loose on my frame. But I pushed through it all, driven by an almost obsessive need to prove my worth. 6 months of intense work later, DataCanvas officially launched. I had secured 3 paying clients, small creative agencies, willing to take a chance on my software. Their feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with one creative director calling it the organizational tool we have been desperately waiting for. Word began to spread within the industry. A respected design blog featured DataCanvas in a review of emerging tech tools, praising its intuitive interface and powerful organizational capabilities. More clients signed on, and by the 8th month, I had recouped my initial investment and was actually drawing a small salary. It was around this time that I noticed a shift in my family's attitude. My mother began calling more frequently, asking casual questions about that computer program I had developed. My father mentioned at a family dinner that he had heard from a colleague about an impressive new data management system for creative industries. Even Jake, whose meal delivery service was struggling to meet its ambitious growth projections, suddenly developed an interest in my tech stuff, as he called it. He suggested we collaborate sometime without specifying what that might entail. Their newfound interest felt hollow and opportunistic. They had dismissed me when I needed support most, and now that success appeared on the horizon, they wanted to be part of it. I maintained polite but distant relationships with them, all focused instead on growing my business and proving that their lack of faith had been their mistake, not mine. As DataCanvas continued to grow, I began hearing troubling reports about Jake's business fresh provisions. Customers complained about late deliveries, inconsistent food quality, and poor customer service. A local food blog published a scathing review highlighting wilted produce and incorrect orders. During a brief phone conversation with Maria, she mentioned that Jake was under a lot of pressure and that the business was having some challenges. Reading between the lines, I suspected things were worse than she was letting on. My suspicions were confirmed when my mother called one evening, her voice tight with worry. "Jake is having some financial difficulties with the business," she explained. "Your father and I are considering helping him with additional funding to get through this rough patch." "How much more are you investing?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral despite the bitterness rising in my throat. "Another $40,000, she admitted. "He just needs a little more time to work out the logistics issues." I bit my tongue to prevent myself from pointing out the obvious, throwing good money after bad. Instead, I simply wished them luck and ended the call shaking my head at their continued blind faith in Jake's failing venture while they had shown none in mine. Meanwhile, DataCanvas was attracting serious attention. Tech Innovator, a prestigious industry magazine, published a feature article about how my software was revolutionizing asset management for creative professionals. The piece included interviews with several satisfied clients and highlighted the unique algorithms that set my product apart from competitors. The exposure led to an influx of new clients, including 2 major advertising agencies with international presence. I hired 3 employees to help manage the growth and moved operations from my apartment to a small but professional office space in Cambridge. Then came the email that would change everything. Jonathan Winters, founder of Pinnacle Ventures, one of the most respected venture capital firms, focusing on creative technology, requested a meeting. We should have trusted our son, not hearsay from someone with a conflict of interest. We hope you can forgive us, my mother said, reaching across the table toward my hand, though I did not reciprocate the gesture. We also want you to know that we have dropped any notion of claiming ownership in your company. Your success is yours alone, and we respect that now. Their apology, while appreciated, could not immediately heal the deep hurt and betrayal I had experienced. Jonathan's offer would provide the capital needed to scale operations, develop new features, and expand into international markets. I had barely processed this monumental development when my parents showed up unannounced at my office. Their appearance was jarring, not just because it was unexpected, but because of the dramatic shift in their demeanor. Gone was the skepticism and dismissal. In its place was an enthusiastic interest that felt disingenuous and calculated. I hired 3 employees to help manage the growth and moved operations from my apartment to a small but professional office space in Cambridge. Then came the email that would change everything. Jonathan Winters, founder of Pinnacle Ventures, one of the most respected venture capital firms, focusing on creative technology, requested a meeting. I stared at him, not comprehending. Family interest. What are you talking about? Well, you are our son. This company is essentially a family asset. We have always supported you, provided for your education, given you the foundation to succeed. The implication became clear as he continued speaking. My parents expected to be given ownership interest in DataCanvas, a company they had explicitly refused to support when I needed them most. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You would not invest $25,000 in my company when I asked for your help, but now that it is worth millions, you think you deserve a share. We are family. My mother interjected as if that explained everything. Family supports each other. Look how much we have helped Jake with his business. And how is that working out? I asked pointedly. The conversation deteriorated from there. My father revealed that he had already spoken with a lawyer friend about how they might claim a rightful share of my company based on their lifetime investment in me. My mother suggested that refusing to include them would show how money had changed me and made me forget family values. I sat at my desk, a storm of emotions raging inside me. The audacity of their claim was breathtaking. They had offered no support, no encouragement, no faith in me or my vision. His sincerity seemed genuine, but like with my parents, only time would tell if actions would match words. In the months that followed, I maintained a cautious distance from my family while focusing on my own healing and the continued growth of DataCanvas. The venture capital investment enabled us to expand our team to 15 employees and develop new features that attracted even larger clients. The space between my family and me gave me perspective I had never had before. Now that I had succeeded on my own terms, they wanted to claim credit and compensation for a journey they had refused to join. I think you should leave, I said quietly, but firmly. DataCanvas is my company. I built it without your help, and I will continue to run it without your interference. The look of shock on their faces would have been almost comical if the situation had not been so painful. They had never expected me to stand up to them to assert boundaries and protect what was rightfully mine. As they left my office, my father turned back. This conversation is not over, Tobias. Family is forever, and what belongs to one of us in some way belongs to all of us. His words sounded more like a threat than a sentiment about family unity. And in that moment, I knew I had a fight on my hands, one that would test not just my business acumen, but the very definition of family loyalty. The next morning, I contacted Sarah Levinson, a respected business attorney who specialized in intellectual property and ownership disputes. I explained the situation with my parents and their implied threat to claim a stake in my company. Unfortunately, this kind of family business dispute is more common than you might think, Sarah explained after listening carefully to my story. But from a legal standpoint, your position is strong. You developed the intellectual property, you formed the company, and you secured the funding. Their claim of entitlement based on being your parents would not stand up in court. She advised me to document all communications with my family regarding the business and to formalize my ownership structure immediately, especially before finalizing the venture capital investment. She also suggested sending a clear cease and desist letter if they continued to press their claims. Armed with this legal confidence, I took another important step. I completely separated my personal finances from any accounts or assets that might have connections to my parents. Though they had never had direct access to my accounts, I had maintained my banking relationships at the same institutions they used. Now I opened new accounts at different banks and transferred all my assets. The final step was the hardest but most necessary. They had never expected me to stand up to them to assert boundaries and protect what was rightfully mine. As they left my office, my father turned back. This conversation is not over, Tobias. Family is forever, and what belongs to one of us in some way belongs to all of us. His words sounded more like a threat than a sentiment about family unity. And in that moment, I knew I had a fight on my hands, one that would test not just my business acumen, but the very definition of family loyalty. You developed the intellectual property, you formed the company, and you secured the funding. Their claim of entitlement based on being your parents would not stand up in court. She advised me to document all communications with my family regarding the business and to formalize my ownership structure immediately, especially before finalizing the venture capital investment. She also suggested sending a clear cease and desist letter if they continued to press their claims. Despite the additional $40,000 my parents had invested, the company filed for bankruptcy. Poor management, logistics issues, and increasing competition from established meal kit services had created an insurmountable situation. My parents lost their entire investment of $115,000. The news gave me no pleasure. For 3 weeks, there was silence from my parents. During this time, I focused on finalizing the investment deal with Pinnacle Ventures. Jonathan and his team were impressed with my vision for expanding DataCanvas and agreed to provide resources beyond capital, including mentorship and industry connections that would prove invaluable. As DataCanvas continued to thrive, news arrived about fresh provisions Jake's meal delivery business. I wrote a formal email to both my parents. I have sought legal counsel regarding your claim to ownership interest in DataCanvas. My attorney has confirmed what I already knew: this company belongs solely to me and the investors who believed in it from the beginning. Any attempt to assert ownership based on our family relationship will be vigorously contested. I hope for the sake of our relationship that you will respect my boundaries and my work. Recent events have given us cause to reflect on our actions and decisions. My mother nodded. We made mistakes in how we handled your business proposal and in our recent approach to your success. We should have supported you from the beginning. Their words seemed rehearsed but sincere. Jake looked uncomfortable, staring down at his plate as my father continued. Jake has helped us understand how our actions affected you, he explained. I wrote a formal email to both my parents. I have sought legal counsel regarding your claim to ownership interest in DataCanvas. My attorney has confirmed what I already knew: this company belongs solely to me and the investors who believed in it from the beginning. Any attempt to assert ownership based on our family relationship will be vigorously contested. I hope for the sake of our relationship that you will respect my boundaries and my work. So, I told Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda that your software was similar to products already on the market, that the competition would be too fierce. His confession stunned me into silence. All these years, I had assumed my parents' preference for Jake was based on some quality he possessed that I lacked. The idea that his influence had actively worked against me was a new wound entirely. We should have done our own research, my father added. Your mother and I have been thinking, my father began after awkward pleasantries. We are so proud of what you have accomplished with DataCanvas. My mother nodded enthusiastically. We always knew you had such potential, Tobias. Their sudden reversal of opinion was suspicious enough, but what came next left me truly stunned. Now that your company is doing well, my father continued, we think it is time to formalize the family's interest in the business. He admitted that he influenced our decision not to invest in your company. I turned to Jake, surprised. He finally looked up, regret evident in his expression. I was jealous, Jake admitted quietly. I always knew you were smarter than me, more likely to succeed. When you came up with your business idea, I was afraid you would overshadow me again. I told them I needed time to process everything, that forgiveness might come eventually, but trust would take longer to rebuild. As we parted ways that night, Jake pulled me aside. I truly am sorry, Tobias. My business failing was partly karma, I guess. But watching you succeed despite the obstacles I helped create has been a powerful lesson. I hope someday we can be real friends, not just cousins. I realized that much of my drive to succeed had been rooted in seeking approval, particularly from my parents. Their rejection of my business had been painful precisely because it confirmed a fear I had always carried, that I would never quite measure up in their eyes. Working with a therapist helped me understand that my worth was not determined by my parents' approval or by comparisons to Jake or anyone else. This realization was liberating, allowing me to make decisions based on my own values rather than anticipated reactions from my family. I also found unexpected support and connection with my new team members and business mentors. Jonathan Winters, in particular, became not just an investor, but a trusted advisor who believed in my vision and abilities without reservation. After an initial demonstration and several follow-up discussions, he made an offer that left me speechless, $8 million for a 30% stake in DataCanvas, with me retaining controlling interest and the position of CEO. The validation was overwhelming. This was not just financial success, but recognition from one of the most discerning investors in the tech world. Instead, they had invested heavily in Jake's now failing business. Yet here they were, hands outstretched, expecting to reap rewards from the success I had achieved, despite their lack of support. In that moment, I experienced a clarity I had never known before. This was not about business or money. It was about respect, recognition, and fundamental fairness. My entire life, I had sought their approval and support only to be compared unfavorably to Jake. By the end of our second year, we had expanded to international markets and developed complementary products that strengthened our position in the creative technology sector. My initial vision had grown into something far more substantial than I had imagined, partly because adversity had forced me to be more resourceful and determined than I might have been with easy family support. After the initial awkwardness following his confession, we found common ground in discussing entrepreneurial challenges. He was working to pay off his business debts while developing a new, more modest business concept. I occasionally offered advice based on my experiences, and he seemed to genuinely appreciate it. As for DataCanvas, the company continued its upward trajectory. Not out of spite or revenge, but because it forces you to find resources within yourself you might never have discovered otherwise. Today, DataCanvas continues to thrive, not as a family business, but as my vision brought to life through perseverance and self-belief. My relationship with my parents remains a work in progress, built on new boundaries and mutual respect rather than obligation or entitlement. The path forward is not about forgetting what happened, but about choosing how it shapes me. I choose to let it make me more discerning about the relationships I nurture, more appreciative of genuine support, and more confident in my own judgment. For anyone facing similar family dynamics or betrayals, remember that your worth is not determined by others' ability to see your potential. Sometimes the people who should believe in you most are the least equipped to do so. Finding the strength to believe in yourself when no one else does may be the most important business skill of all. Has your family ever failed to support your dreams or tried to claim credit for your success? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life lessons about family business and personal growth. Remember, sometimes the family you choose can support you better than the family you were born into. Thanks for listening, and may you find the strength to build boundaries that protect your dreams.